Good morning. Buenos dias. You all got so quiet when I walked in. There was this thing that we do. Everybody was just chopping it up, having great organic conversation, and then somebody got to the mic and everything just shut down right there. Good morning again. Thank you, Chancellor Ortiz-Oakley. Thank you also to Vice Chancellor Weber, and thank you to all of you for being a part of this conversation and for the work of the Community College Teacher Pathway. I'm impressed to learn that so many of our teachers come through this pathway. Excited to hear about what comes out of the next couple, the conversations today that will help us moving forward. You all know more than anyone how important teachers are to our students. We're seeing students who are more than ever living in poverty, homeless, hungry, and even in our criminal justice system. I taught a class of high school students. It was a civics class, and all the students were detained in the juvenile camp. And these were brilliant students who needed a second chance. And I thought to myself, how awful is it to have to get your diploma while you're detained, while you were behind bars? And that's why this year our office sponsored a bill that will ban the for-profit prison industry, because we need to educate and not incarcerate our kids. Well, geez, I'm going out of order in my speech. You're clapping already. I'm like, I should just shut up because it's all downhill from here. But you all know how important teachers are to our students. And in my life, that's certainly no different. I've had great teachers in my life, and it's helped me overcome a number of barriers, overcoming poverty and being raised in a low-income family and a family of immigrants, and being raised on the other side of the tracks, so to speak. I had teachers who always raised the bar high and gave me whatever support I needed to help me get there. I never had a teacher say, you cannot. I never heard the word can't from a teacher. And if I didn't do what I could, I was pushed gently, and sometimes not gently, to really achieve. I always put in context the importance of teachers. I put it in the context of my own life and story. As someone who was born here in the Bay Area at Fort Ord, in Monterey, when it was Fort Ord, now CSU Monterey. For all you CSU folks, I got you. My mom was an immigrant, and she came here from Panama, and she was a teacher. She taught in San Jose. My dad, as some of you heard him say, he emigrated too. He emigrated all the way from Detroit, Michigan, by way of Mississippi. And he was not a teacher. He went into the U.S. Army. He served in Vietnam. I didn't see my dad until I found him on the internet, and that means we had our first conversation when I was 40 years old. I was 40. And he talked about trauma and how it impacted him and kept him away from our family. So my mom raised 4 kids by herself, and she was very sick. My mom had cancer. And when I was 6, she lost her battle to cancer. Her kids got split up. I ended up in Philadelphia being raised by my cousin, who's also an immigrant. And we were raised really trying to get out of poverty. I was on the free lunch program. I ate the free lunch and got teased by my friends. And then I became an adult, and I realized everybody in my school was on the free lunch program. I don't know what that was all about. I went to the store with food stamp coupons. I was embarrassed. Everybody in my neighborhood was on public assistance. I ate so much government cheese, I thought that USDA was a brand name. I'm not kidding. I just tell that story all the time because people are like, what about the government cheese? What about the government cheese? It's the only thing that they ever remember. And it was hard. You had to get through that big old box and cut through the plastic. You're laughing now, huh? You remember, though. If you got through all that, it would be a great grilled cheese sandwich, a great quesadilla, a great meal. To help, and it helped me overcome poverty. But I'm really clear that the greatest public program I ever had a chance to participate in was getting a great public education. And you can't have that without having great teachers. And we make it really hard for teachers today. I know that you all gave an award, or are going to give an award, to Linda Darling Hammond. A great move, by the way. Congratulations, Linda. I don't know if you're here, but One thing I learned when I was in the legislature, she came and she presented at an education hearing, and she started talking about what we need to do to recruit and retain teachers. And then all of a sudden, I had this aha moment, like a light went off. And then every year after that, I introduced bills to do the things that she said. I just copied her ideas and put it in legislation. And so I'm sure you all have seen the research from the Learning Policy Institute. It talks about the biggest impediment to teachers staying in the profession are the working conditions. I just don't get it. We say we value educators, and then we go about as a society doing everything that we can to make it hard for them, right? We don't pay them well compared to other professions. Teachers are working in settings where they have, large class loads of students. Sometimes students are throwing things at you, hitting you, doing all kinds of things. But then the people in power are also being mean to teachers and just trying to make it as easy as possible to get rid of a teacher and as hard as possible to support, train, coach, and keep a teacher. And I just think we have to change that narrative. And I learned along the way, if you want to really know how to make education better, listen to teachers. And I figured that out. And there's a teacher in this room who's been helping me, giving me advice, whether I asked for it or not, over the last 10 years. And so when I became the state superintendent, she's a 30-year teacher. I decided to hire her, and so that we have teachers informing policy and practice, and she's leading our professional development work. And I want to acknowledge her. She's in the room, Terry Jackson from the California Department of Education. She's giving me that, oh, shucks, you shouldn't have, I'm going to get you later look. But, she's somebody I have to call out, because when I was in the legislature and being asked to vote on bills that would just really focus on how to push teachers out, I would just say, Terry, give me some perspective. And she'd give me perspective. She'd connect me to other teachers who could give me perspective. And I just think now we know we've got to do better. And I love the theme of this gathering, that we've got to build an integrated system for how we support teachers. I loved hearing about the pathway and how you can help to remove barriers for future teachers, around financial barriers, around credentialing. Look, we have to have real honest conversations. I believe in credentialing. I think it's important, but I think we have to find a way to make sure that's not a barrier for incoming teachers. My own niece is someone who wants to be a teacher. She ended up going to school out of state, in a state where they said, you will be in the classroom the day you graduate. And, they might have exaggerated a bit, but the point is that California has best intentions and some room for improvement in how we do credentialing. And our school districts have some room for improvement, and it's not always their fault, but I don't ever want to hear the day again when we ask a teacher to pay for their own induction program. I'm sorry, but I feel like that's our responsibility to provide ongoing professional development from beginning to end. And so I understand Assemblymember Christy Smith is going to be speaking to you. She and I have been talking about working on legislation that would do just that, really make how the induction process happens equal across all districts. Some do really well, and then some say, hey, you're on your own, you got to pay for that. And we want to make it so that anyone who's going to teach our kids has the best training. I really believe instead of saying, should we be firing a teacher before they get tenure in 2 years or 3 years, I think the conversation should be completely different. To me, I think it should go like this. How do we ensure that every new teacher, we front load as much training as we can provide them as possible? I don't know about you, I'm sure you all know how to do this, but I wasn't born knowing how to do classroom management, and I don't know a lot of people who were. And I know a lot of people who quite frankly are smart and brilliant, but that's where they fail. And so to me, the best way to really learn how to manage that is to have great coaching and great mentoring. And so I think that we should flip the script, as they say, and move to a conversation about front-loading professional development, providing new teachers with coaching and mentors, giving feedback in real time. So if you can make a correction, you do that before it's too late. Why do you wait until the school board's making a vote to what they call non-reelect someone, non-reelect, right? What is that, right? But why do we wait to that point to say, hey, this has been a problem, thanks, no thanks? We should really give people an opportunity to make a correction. by giving them feedback that they can use in real time that's going to benefit them. You know, my kids go to school in a district that has every year for the last couple of years had to replace 200 teachers. And I'm like, how do we close the opportunity gap if we had that kind of churn in our teacher corps? Right? I'm trying to work in all the themes. Eloy said, you make sure you get in there about teacher recruitment, our teacher shortage. I'm trying to weave a story. I'm trying. But it's a true story. And when we surveyed the teachers in the district, they said that one of the biggest challenges that they experienced, they couldn't afford to live where they were. We live in the Bay Area, and they just couldn't afford to live where they were. And so for the last 3 or 4 years, every year I've been introducing a teacher housing bill to pay for affordable housing for teachers. And every year, you know, they say this is not necessary. They say, oh, this is just a Bay Area problem. All I'll say is I appreciate our new governor. He heard it, and he approved in our state budget tax credits that we can use so that school districts can build affordable housing. We have all kinds of programs. We even have a program for teachers who want help to buy a home. It's a down payment assistance program. The state never talks about it. I'm like, look, you got a program like that, you have to use it. All that to say, we know there's a lot of things that we need to do to help us with retaining teachers and recruiting teachers. I think it starts with improving the pay for teachers first and foremost, right? They say, and then improving the working conditions. And I know that in order to do that, we have work to do. The state is providing more money. The state right now is providing more money for all facets of education than it has in many years. More money for preschool through 12th grade, more money for our community colleges, our CSU and UCs. But even so, we're still 41st in the nation in per pupil spending. That won't change until we change our tax policy to get us more permanent revenue. I'm sorry, you know, we got to tax millionaires, we got to tax big corporations that pay nothing in property tax to generate the money, because they say you show your value by what you put in your budget. And we always say that our kids are number one, so let's show them that they're number one by what we put on our education budget. Let's move from 41st to being first in the nation in per pupil spending. That's a great place to put your hands together. I salute you. These are the things that we prioritize. I've made it a priority at the Department of Education that closing the opportunity gap is our number one priority. We've sponsored legislation to support professional development. I mentioned the teacher housing, and a number of you have been active in our work groups. And I met a new friend today. She told me she's on 3 of our work groups. Thank you. Thank you. She's right here in the front. We've created these work groups because we want the voices of educators to help us figure out questions like, how do we close the teacher shortage? How do we do professional development in a better way? How do we close the opportunity gap, expand STEAM? We've named a statewide literacy campaign. All these things we've done with having no money in the bank, but I believe that sometimes you got to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what must be done. And that if you have the political will to say, we're going to do it, we're going to ensure that every student gets a top quality education, and then you go find the money to make it happen. I believe that because that's been the story of my life. It has been the narrative of my life. I had some billionaire tell me once, they said, you should just focus on the kids who show promise and potential. Yeah, right? Usually when I say that, people start cussing bad words. That's bullshit, right? Because it is, right? All kids show promise and potential. It's up to us to help them build their potential. And I think I told this person, if someone had made that decision about me, a shy, quiet kid who came from the other side of the tracks, I'd not be standing before you right now. And so we have to have the political will to make sure that we support our students. The best way we support them is making sure that they have a great and well-trained teacher at the head of every single class. And I'm looking forward to the work that all of our systems do together to help us get there for our 6 million students. Thanks for sharing part of your day with me, and thank you for supporting our teachers and our kids.
Before I introduce our next speaker, I would just like to make a few notes about what Superintendent Thurmond just said. We believe in every single person's potential within teacher preparation, and that's why one of the things that you will see during our breakout sessions and throughout this conference is there's opportunities to learn about the Grow Your Own model, where we can take a more inclusive approach to making sure we're intentionally working on diversifying the teacher field. Another thing I want to mention too, I appreciate that Superintendent mentioned some of the programs and things that are available to our teachers in California. I'm 45 years old and I bought my first house in my 20s. If it wasn't for the teacher program that allowed me to put a $500 down on that house, I don't know if I would have ever become a homeowner in my community. Sorry to be emotional, but he mentioned these things that literally have impacted my own life. Superintendent Thurmond also said something about induction and the need for induction to be taken care of for our teachers. I know of 2 second-year teachers that had to pay their induction costs for both first and second year. Just for perspective, before taxes, their induction costs cost 5% of their annual salary. So I really appreciate him mentioning that this is something we need to work on because it needs to be equitable. If one person gets this opportunity, we need to figure out a way to make sure everybody has that opportunity for induction. So sorry to have to riff on a couple of things there, but I just wanted to mention, I love when our speakers say things that really hit close to home.